So, we are just back from the cinema, and we've been going to see Spider-Man 2 Across the Spiderverse, the
Yes.
sequel of Spider-Man 1, Into the Spiderverse, which you didn't see before, but I showed it to you just a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
So, first of all, can you tell me what you liked about the first movie?
Well, the first movie was like a gulp of fresh air because the visual part is astonishing. It reminded me of Arcane so much, despite I don't remember which one came out first,
I'm
actually.
not really sure. I'm pretty sure Into the Spider-Verse came first, but honestly, they are really close to each other. But
Yeah.
Arcane made it really popular after that.
Yeah, totally. And I really like the strength of the plot. Like, I really like that the writer or writers, they weren't afraid to risk and to just play it big. So pretty much everything about the first part is super likable, and I really enjoyed the first one. The sense of humor, the art, the characters themselves, the plot twists, of course, and the villains. So yeah,
Hmm.
everything was just great.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. When I first saw the movie, I expected Miles more or less because I didn't know anything about the character to just be like Black Spider-Man, like they're always changing the gender or the color of the main character, and I couldn't care less for that. But he is his own character with his own story, and I was really impressed by how they made him likable from the very beginning, and he became one of my favorite animated characters in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
I don't know much about him except from that movie,
Mm-hmm.
but in this movie he is just spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And the cast was also brilliant. They had some really good actors that I don't always know to voice him and the side characters. They even had Nicolas Cage as one of the supporting cast. But yeah, it was mind-blowing in the sense that they had so much to cram in the same movie with different art style and different tone, but it managed really well. I remember that one of the writers for that movie was Phil Lord and maybe Chris Miller, which are the people who made the Lego movie. And the Lego movie, I didn't like it as much as many people did,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like it was also a work of passion that took everyone by surprise by just being completely um, beyond expectations. Like, what could we expect from, a Lego movie?
Yeah,
Just like
yeah, yeah.
what we can expect from the Barbie movie coming, maybe.
Well, that is a very different story because I almost had to call the ambulance. Like, that is something that I really will never be able to understand because, as I told you, well, we've only seen the trailer
Trailer.
for Barbie movie today, and I'm completely lost about the audience it's aimed at because, as I said, the last generation who grew up with Barbie would be mine, which is people who were born in 90s, and people now they couldn't give a fuck about Barbies from what I know. I mean, they're definitely not as popular even among kids.
I'm pretty sure that they're gonna be doing exactly what they've been doing. They're taking a famous brand, they're putting some famous actors in it, and they're gonna make it a silly comedy with raunchy humor, lots of girl power stuff probably,
Yes,
and
but
that's it.
who is gonna go watch it? Because
The
my
same people
generation.
who went to see Ghostbusters 2016.
Okay.
That's what I said.
Okay.
And
Got it.
if you don't go see this movie,
Got
you
it.
are either a
Got
misogynistic person.
it. Got it.
Anyway, moving on to something
Yes.
better.
Yes.
You liked the first movie as much as I did, and I've been trying to see this one for at least 2 weeks now, and every time we had to push it back. So I was really happy that it stayed another week in the theaters because I really wanted to see it in the big screen. Now, um, first of all, spoiler alert, this movie is the second one in the trilogy.
At least
At
trilogy.
least trilogy, which is something I didn't know beforehand because I didn't want to read any spoiler or any review of that movie before I went to see it by myself. So the plot is pretty dense, but there is no resolve at the end.
Absolutely.
So this is important to understand because if you expect the movie to end, well, it just doesn't. There is a big cliffhanger, literally, when you have no idea what's going to happen next, and it says to be continued.
Yeah.
That was a bit disappointing, but thinking about it, they are telling a very unpractical story with a lot of side characters, with a huge world building, and even if they had 2.5 hours to do it, maybe the movie drags along once in a while, but they took that time to delve into the characters and their personality and their relationship, especially the parents and the kids, and I really enjoyed that.
Oh yes, totally. I really like that they are uncovering this topic of toxic parents and parents not being able to let their kids grow up. I think it's a quite important one to discuss and to show on the big screen, but I really didn't enjoy the fact that it cuts in the middle of something with the words to be continued because, as I said earlier, it very much reminded me of Hunger Games. Hunger Game or Hunger Games?
Hangar. It's way it's close.
Hangover Games.
Yes, Hangover Games.
Hangover Games 3 because pretty much the whole third part was the lead-in for the fourth part, and here it felt kind of the same because despite the fact that it's very dense writing. It's still like it's the same as you're trying to write a diploma where you introduce 80 pages of something, but in the end you kind of didn't say anything. So you pretty much just pour a lot of water. And I completely get it that like it's a complicated story and there are a lot of side characters, so they all need kind of some time on the screen. But if you knew that you would have to cut it into maybe the second part didn't have to be 2 hours and a half long, like maybe it could be a bit less and more concentrated. But of course, like you kind of forget about it in the middle, in the act, because the art studio, they just did a magic, because it is astonishing to watch. It's a mind-blowing art.
Yes, it is one of the most colorful movie I've seen,
Yeah.
and even if the art itself is reminiscent to Arcane, and literally a few months back, Puss in Boots 2, which is my favorite movie of 2022,
Which you have to show me.
which I have to show you. In this one, they really outdone themselves with what they can do with animation. It is just out of this world.
Yeah.
It's Sony, and Sony wasn't famous before for anything in particular, but I think they really found their trademark here.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, the just for the art and the animation itself, it is worth watching on the big screen.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But if it was just for that, the movie would be pretty empty. And actually, there are so many great characters that I wasn't really bored at all. Like even when the movie, as I said, drags along a bit, they do have something important to say. I really like the new characters that I don't know much about. Miguel, played by Oscar Isaac, who is supposed to be the Spider-Man who tried to save someone he was not supposed to, and because of this, he kind of ruined his whole universe, and now he's trying to prevent the same from happening in other universes. It's just about the multiverse anyway. So he's not a bad guy, he's not a good guy, he's in between. He has a lot of resentment and he has a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. So just because of that, that makes him a great leader, but
Yeah.
also someone to be. You have to make sure that he doesn't do the wrong thing. He can be unpredictable.
Yeah, he's very controversial, which makes it much more interesting to observe. So.
Yeah. And my favorite is actually the bad guy. Like, I didn't see that coming, but Mr. Spot,
Spot.
yeah, he starts off like literally completely harmless, and he fumbles around because he has wormholes everywhere on his body, and it makes it for really great slapstick in the first 30 minutes. And his origin story is really awesome because they make it like Dr. Manhattan from literally
Yeah.
Watchmen,
Yeah.
with the experiment going wrong. But it turns out to be that guy in the background of the first movie who is hit with a bagel. And this is what I remember very well because it literally shows bagel in the first movie when he gets hit. I have no idea if it was planned before, it was just a joke that they made up, but this is really, really funny.
Yeah.
And he turns out to be a great villain. He's played by Jason Schwartzman, who is mostly famous for being in Wes Anderson movies, very quirky stuff. And here his voice is very unassuming, like he's always talking to himself in this geeky voice.
Yeah.
But when he goes berserk and you realize how much of a threat he is, he's actually very menacing. And they managed to do it very well with the voice acting and also the art style.
Yeah.
So when a bad guy has great motivation to fight against the main character, but he's also a personality as himself, that makes it very compelling.
Yeah.
I don't like cardboard cutouts bad guys from the MCU. Most of the time they're just expendables, but this one you want to see more of him.
Yeah, totally. The sense of humor here, it was like there was a number of times that I pretty much loved, or at least smiled. So it definitely cheered me up, and I definitely had a good experience with that. So would I watch the next parts? Hopefully it's the last one, because not because I don't enjoy it, but because I really hope they're not gonna drag it into like 5, 6 parts.
Yeah, I just don't want them to have Beyond the Spider-Verse Part 1, which means like the Hunger Game or the last Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I don't know the story, if there is any in the comics, but I don't think they have enough material to stretch it like they did in The Hobbit, for instance.
Yeah.
They shouldn't do that.
I hope they don't. But so far so good. Of course, I would like the story to be more dense and more meaningful things to happen, because yes, there are a lot of things that happen, but not all of them. Far from all of them were actually meaningful to the main characters and to the storytelling.
I feel like most of the new Spider-Man from that Spider-Verse that we meet are just here for the joke. Most of them.
Yeah.
The Indian Spider-Man is really funny.
Oh yes,
And,
especially because we just recently watched the RR.
Oh yeah, we just watched RRR, and
Yeah.
great movie from India. But the guy who voices him, he is the taxi driver in Deadpool. Like, I cannot even figure out why it's a big thing, but that was his debut, and his debut was with Ryan Reynolds, who is really famous for improvising. And I think that he went on to be a really he's going to be a really famous comedian if he's not there yet. He has
Mhm.
great sense of humor and his voice, and he managed to
Mhm.
make a lot of humor just with the intonation. I really enjoyed the Indian guy.
Yeah. He was quite outstanding out of all of the super Spider-Man that we've seen
Hmm.
today, and he was definitely a pleasure to look at.
Yeah. Then there were a few memes that were really fun.
Yeah.
There was even a reference to the Lego movie. As I said, Phil Lord and Chris Miller
Mm-hmm.
worked on the Lego movie.
Yeah.
But something I read just recently is that the animated sequence that
Mm-hmm.
they made in that movie in Lego
Mm-hmm.
was not made by the creators of the Lego movie, but by a 14-year-old kid who reproduced the Lego movie trailer with his own Lego. And people who made the Spider-Man were so impressed that they asked him to direct the sequence where you just see the Lego Spider-Man going
Mm-hmm.
in the bathroom from the Daily Bugle.
Yeah.
Apparently, this is a 14-year-old kid who did that.
Oh my God, he's got a bright future ahead.
So yeah,
It's lovely.
that's just one of the amazing stories.
Yeah. Okay.
Another of my favorite thing is to see the scene where Tobey Maguire's sobs on when Ben
Yeah.
dies, his uncle Ben
Mm-hmm.
dies. But this is from like the first Spider-Man movie from 2001, the
Mm-hmm.
very first that started everything. So there is a reference to this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There is a reference to Andrew Garfield as well. And speaking of Garfield, there is a Spider-Man cat, which is really cute. And the only one missing is Tom Holland from the MCU, because I think it's just not possible to have Disney allowing Sony to get an actor or even footage from their universe. So it's purely political.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had great fun with all the Spider-Man from different comics and different universes. The manga Spider-Man, Punk Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, Punk Spider-Man is amazing.
I like the art style of just cutting different pieces
Yeah.
of
Newspaper?
newspaper and
Yeah.
animating him through that.
Yeah,
That was
it
really good.
reflects a lot from Britain of that time, so
Yeah, it's definitely like Sex Pistols from the 70s,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
shows like they have a really great confidence in the art style to
Oh, for
manage
sure.
to mix so many things at the same time without feeling cluttered.
Yeah. So,
What was your favorite moment?
my favorite moment. Well, it's kind of hard to choose one moment. I really need to think about it, but you can begin with yours.
I don't have one particular moment that stands out, but I have to say that some of the scenes with the parents really resonate,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought they were as bittersweet as they could.
Mm-hmm.
They really flesh out the dad and the mother, not one or the other, which
Yeah.
is very a common trope in many animated movies,
Mm-hmm.
especially Disney, when the mother is just dead, you know. And the fact that they are mostly black people doesn't matter at all. There is no gender equality or racial stereotype thingy. They are, as I said, fleshed out characters, and I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people said that if you're not the same gender or the same color of the main characters, you can't enjoy the story. Well, that's complete bullshit because the main characters is one black guy and one white girl, and
Yeah.
I'm neither. And this is just great storytelling. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap it up because I don't want to speak too long. I was just hoping to share my thoughts with
Yeah.
you before we move on, and I was just happy to see it on the big screen finally.
For sure, same here. Thank you for this time together.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
All right, so that's it. If you have a chance, just go see the movie in theaters, and just be aware that it's the second part of what is mostly going to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Have a good one.